Well, it is time for another episode of Ink Transfer Drawing with Mark Zimmerman. My name is Mark Zimmerman. I'm a visiting artist here at Sanford through the Sanford Arts program. So let them know you appreciate this if you do. What I just did with that Brayer, that little roller, was put a very thin, smooth layer of ink on this sheet of plexiglass. And I'm going to drop a sheet of paper over that ink. And then I'm going to draw and rub on the back of that paper. Transfer ink to the front and create what's called an ink transfer drawing. I'm also going to maybe then splash a little watercolor on it and finish it that way. So that ink is inside that rectangle of tape, and I can feel that tape with my pen. So I just push that pen up into the corner a little bit, find the corner. Once I find the corner, I can drag my pen along the edge of that tape. And I've got a couple photos. I think I'm going to do kind of a composite drawing here. I'm going to, let's get it right up there maybe. I'm doing a fence post, a gnarly one. And I'm looking at a photograph of that. And so what I'm doing is drawing on the back of this sheet of paper, transferring ink to the front. And I'm kind of looking at the photograph mostly just so I get the details of the shadows and the little knots and things. It must be like a juniper post. It's a photograph I took up in Harding County. And in classic fence building style, just put a staple in there and a couple strands of wire. I like how it slopes down out of that. And then before I put this in, I think I better put this sage and the grass in here. So that sage over here, some shadows in it too. There's a little. So I put that in before I put this staple and wire in, because I wanted to know where that might show up, and I didn't really know where I might draw. Alright, so let's put some barbs on that wire. There we go. Now I think I want a different photo in the background here. I'm going to put a rocky little hillside in here, and on top of that a butte. Kind of a rocky butte, I like that. And put some shadows on the butte too. There we go. A couple little rocks out in here. What do you think? Clear blue sky? Nah, let's put a little sun up there. Now I grew up in a square house, on a square block in a square town. Well, I got a puppy down here messing with my art supplies. There we go. Puppy's name is Cleo. She's a little German Shepherd. A little sweetie too. Mostly she's pretty good, but... So anyway, I grew up in this square house on this square block in a square town. In one of the square states, in fact. Grew up in North Dakota. So it's not a square, but rectilinear anyway. So when I do landscapes, I end up doing squares for some reason. So there's my square sun. And I can transfer ink simply by touching the back of the paper too. So I'm going to come in here, kind of lightly transfer some ink. A little darker transfer, so a little more pressure. It's hard to see on the video, but trust me, I'm pressing harder here, harder here. Oop. Moved a little bit. Now I can take a peek, and maybe I better on this one. So kind of using two different photographs and my imagination and some metaphorical things to get a square sun in. That'll work. So I'm going to take the tape off and get the plate, the ink out of here. And then I'll splash a little watercolor on this. There's our post and our ridge, and of course our square sun. Now watercolor, which I have mixed up over here. Traditionally, well, I should have stirred all these, but I didn't. So I've got them mixed up. By that I mean I've got them in solution already. And watercolor is traditionally worked from light to dark, so I'm starting with my lightest colors. Oh good, the pup's going to lay down on her bed. Then I know where she is too, and I don't have to wonder what she's chewing up in my studio. Let's put a little yellow ochre in there. check, see how dark that is. Not too dark. We're going to make this an autumn scene. So a little yellow ochre, a little burnt umber. Burnt umber is just dirt. It's literally an earth tone color, and it's dirt from Italy, from Umbria in Italy. Somebody bothered to toast up. I'm going to put some shadows down in here. Yellow and blue, which is what I've got right now, make a green. Ooh, get out of there. Yellow and blue make green, and I'm going to paint my sage a little blue-green here. Here's my grass along that bit of in front of the fence line, or along the fence line. I'm going to put a shadow. I already kind of drew the shadows on this, but I'm going to kind of tone that white down, put a little gray in there. It's actually a color called indigo. And I think I'm going to come back with some burnt sienna. Umber is dirt from Umbria in Italy. Burnt sienna is just burnt dirt from Sienna in Italy, although I suspect they don't source it all out of Italy. But it's just an earth tone, a pigment that's about that color, kind of toasted dirt. So you can see little flecks of paper still showing the color of the paper, and that's just fine with me. Those actually become little sparkles in my painting, and paintings that sparkle are not all bad. So that little, what almost is an accidentally missed spot, I'm going to leave that alone. I think I'm better off with the sparkle than fussing with it and getting it just so it's kind of... Look at that. Burnt sienna has just turned into a nasty, slimy mess in that cup. Not sure why that is. Sometimes I put a little salt in with that paint when the paint is in solution, and let's get this out of there. Here, I want to lighten that light side of that post just a touch. Back to umber. Oh, dark. Yikes. There's no white in watercolor, but there's water, and so you just thin your paint, and that lets more of the paper show through, and the paper is light. So that's how you create light in watercolor, is with just a little more water. And I'm picking paint up over here where I have too much and putting it down over here where I want it. Now I'm just left with too much, so I'm going to dry my brush off on a paper towel a little bit and just pick it up. Soften the line between those two colors a little bit. Ooh. And and put just a touch of red and ochre and ochre. There's that yellow ochre and a little touch of red. Give myself a red cliff face up in here. Alright, so that leaves me the sky with my square sun hanging out up there. I think I'm going to go back to some of that yellow I used down there. Maybe a little more than that. There we go. And some of this blue. Keep it pretty light, especially right around that yellow. I don't want to overpower that yellow. A little more paint, so a little darker. Oh, and I left myself some trees. I'm going to paint those too. I like that idea of the red and green if I leave those trees. I could also treat them like ridges too. But I think I like the idea of the contrast between red and green. They happen to be direct complements, exact opposites on the color wheel, and so they kind of, red makes green seem more intense and green makes red seem more intense. So I get a little more out of my brownish red by putting in some brownish green over there. There we go. Oh, too much. Let's dry a little of that off, and oh, still too much. Dry a little of that off. Dry a little more. Maybe even put a little of that green up in the sky. Oh, not down there though, up here. So the blue-green and the red kind of like each other, so they work well together. Let me take a peek at it right side up. A little more red, maybe. A little red in the green to dull it down to a little bit more of a brown. Here we are. There we are. It's hard not to keep fussing with them. I always sign them in pencil at the bottom. Treat them kind of like a print in that way. We'll call it Gray Post. Gray Post, Yellow Sun, sign it. That scratch there, chicken scratch there is my signature, and then 2020. And these things should be near where you're watching the video, and they are free for the taking. So if you like this one, or you find another one in a stack of drawings that you like, help yourself. You can thank Sanford Arts for that, and hope you enjoyed watching. I had fun doing it.